Christine Brennan just exposed the WNBA in a major way.
Christine Brennan is one of the best sports writers in the country, has been for a long time.
Caitlin Clark is way more important to the WNBA than Tiger Woods was to men's golf, even though he was huge. And to then see this negativity, like why? And what should have been done? I looked seriously at the leadership of the WNBA. And how could you not be prepared for this moment? You've seen it happening in the Big Ten. You've seen it at Iowa. You see these TV.
The WNBA has just been hit with one of its most humiliating moments to date. Esteemed USA Today journalist Christine Brennan finally called out the league, dropping a truth bomb so powerful it sent shockwaves straight through WNBA headquarters. Armed with facts and unfiltered honesty, Brennan exposed the league's mishandling of Caitlin Clark in a way that tore right through its credibility. It's a scathing reality check that should have everyone, from top executives to bitter veterans, feeling the heat. So here's the question. Is the WNBA's misstep rooted in jealousy over Caitlin Clark's rapid rise, or is this a case of outright mismanagement and incompetence? Drop your thoughts in the comments. Are the players just envious, or is the league simply fumbling the ball? Let's talk.
Came out, what she had to say in this book was going to shake the ground of the WNBA. She's been around for a very long time, and she knows the inner and outer workings of this league. Christine Brennan let it be known in multiple interviews that the WNBA was not ready for a superstar.
Here's how this full-blown drama kicked off. Christine Brennan, who's been covering women's basketball longer than many of today's players have been alive, decided it was time to write a book. And this wasn't some feel-good, girl power puff piece. Far from it. She went full-on investigative bulldog, ripping into the WNBA's catastrophic failure to capitalize on the Caitlin Clark phenomenon. This wasn't a hot take, it was journalistic scorched earth. And the fallout? It's still shaking the foundation of the league.
The thing I don't get, Christine, is that in the case of Tiger and in the case of Jordan, the other players and the league around them, in Tiger's case, the PGA Tour, realized that a rising tide raises all boats and were incredibly supportive of Tiger and Jordan. With Caitlin, it seems like, for whatever reason, she's polarizing. Like, she's been hit with more flagrant fouls than any player ever this year. They tried to come at you when you were writing a story and said, don't ask questions about why people don't like Caitlin Clark. But I'm going to ask you, Christine, why is she polarizing in your opinion? Why do people not embrace the phenomenon that is?
Christine Brennan didn't show up to hand out participation trophies. She came to expose the mess. She tore back the curtain on just how out of touch, petty, and frankly complacent the WNBA's leadership has been in handling the arrival of Caitlin Clark. This isn't just another talented rookie we're talking about. Clark is a generational force, the player who dragged women's basketball from the margins into the national spotlight. But instead of celebrating the moment, the league acted like it was under siege, trading celebration for discomfort and confetti for thumps. It's as if they resented the very spotlight she brought with her.
One of the big points in the book, I deal with all of this and my research and reporting, because I was so perplexed as well. I mean, this is the greatest moment ever for the WNBA.
Yep.
We wish it happened sooner. Of course we wish it happened sooner. There were amazing players who, as you know, Ramona, I mean, both you guys know, were toiling in obscurity, the male-dominated mainstream sports media ignoring.
One of the most jaw-dropping revelations in Brennan's expose? The moment Caitlin Clark declared for the 2024 draft, Brennan reached out to a high-ranking WNBA official for their reaction. You'd expect fanfare, right? Maybe some fireworks, PR blitz, something. Instead, the response was almost comically flat. The exec calmly said Clark's arrival was the biggest thing since Maya Moore. Now, no shade to Maya, she's an all-time great, but let's be real, outside of hardcore basketball circles, Maya Moore barely registered with the mainstream public. Most people couldn't have picked her out of a grocery store lineup. That comment wasn't just tone-deaf, it revealed just how out of sync the league is with the cultural moment Clark represents.
Home like everybody else. And I think, guys, that actually helped me understand as a journalist the fascination, because I've covered a lot over my career and been very fortunate to be at Wimbledon's and Super Bowls and Tiger Woods and you name it, I've covered it. And I'm so lucky to have done that. And I found myself fascinated, like, who is this? And And I'm getting text messages from guys who would never have watched a second of women's basketball. Good guys. They want their daughters to play sports. I mean, good people, but just, And they're texting, are you there? I'm watching. Are you seeing this performance? And that told me something that I actually was very helpful to be at home watching it versus being on press row, talking to a bunch of other journalists, that like, okay, there's something going on in the country here. And it's everyone's fascinated, and people are standing in line for hours in the cold around the Big Ten, this barnstorming tour, and it's all about a basketball player who happens to be a...
This is where Christine Brennan's decades in the game made all the difference. She saw instantly what the WNBA brass couldn't or wouldn't. Caitlin Clark wasn't just another elite player. She was a cultural tidal wave poised to wash away every tired narrative about the WNBA being niche, invisible, or irrelevant. While league execs were still lazily comparing her to past stars who barely moved the ratings needle, Brennan already knew America was about to be glued to the Caitlin Clark era. And how did the league respond to that once-in-a-generation warning shot? With crickets. They sat on their hands and watched the moment pass them by. Honestly, you almost have to admire the level of incompetence it takes to fumble the most obvious marketing slam dunk in modern sports. But Brennan's book reveals something even worse. This wasn't just a failure of execution. It was a failure of imagination. The people running the WNBA were so conditioned to obscurity, so numb to indifference, they couldn't even picture a world where the spotlight found them. It's like owning a bakery and being shocked when people actually show up to buy bread. That's how deep the disconnect ran, and Brennan lays it all out in brutal detail.
Unauthorized, which is not ominous at all. You want it to be unauthorized because I can tell the truth, unvarnished. Caitlin's quoted throughout the book. She was great answering any question I asked her, but dealing with these important issues. So you've got a 74% black league. We understand this. I mean, I'm white. Ramona, I think you guys are white. But we have no idea what it's like to be black in America. And I say that. Let's be brutally honest here. Here comes a white woman from Iowa, and she's going to be the biggest superstar. Now, absolutely, the spotlight's shining on her. Finally, it's shining on all these other players who deserved it for years but never got it. And that's a wonderful turn of events. But instead of focusing on the positives, sadly, the WNBA players, so many of them, not all.
And it's not like this came out of nowhere. As Brennan's reporting makes painfully clear, plenty of journalists, analysts, even YouTubers, had been sounding the alarm since Caitlin Clark's days at Iowa. The signs weren't subtle either. Her following was massive, loyal, and ready to flood arenas the moment she went pro. This was a walking sellout machine, a marketing dream, and yet the WNBA front office barely glanced up from their spreadsheet. The numbers speak louder than any press release. In 2023, the Indiana Fever were drawing crowds of about 4,000 per game. That's a slow night at a Texas high school gym. Fast forward to Caitlin Clark's preseason debut, and suddenly fans are lining up 2 hours early like she's Beyoncé and it's opening night. Security staff were stunned. They'd never seen anything like it, and that was just a warm-up game. The momentum was undeniable. The hype was organic. And still, somehow, the league leadership couldn't connect the dots. They didn't just underestimate Clark, they ignored an entire movement forming right in front of their eyes.
And an antagonist. And I've argued that the NBA could use a little bit more of hero and villain to popularize the sport again. The WNBA does not need that, because for a lot of America, Caitlin Clark is the hero. And anyone that comes to Caitlin Clark's defense is a hero. And everyone that flagrantly fouls her, speaks poorly of her, acts like she's not great, is the villain, and then vice versa on that. How big of a part of the story is that when you look at the conflict surrounding
So how did the WNBA capitalize on this tidal wave of fresh fans and national attention? Did they roll out the red carpet for their generational superstar? Launch a bold media blitz? Maybe embrace the moment with the kind of energy that could elevate the entire league? Of course not. Instead, they reacted like cranky neighbors yelling at kids to get off their lawn, irritated, defensive, and visibly uncomfortable with the spotlight. It was as if they liked being overlooked, clinging to their small pond status instead of seizing the chance to become an ocean. It's almost impressive how allergic they were to success. Absolutely unreal.
grown men on talking head shows wanting to fight each other over women's basketball and talking about it, right? We've got all these hot takes about all this going on, Christine. How big of a part of the story is that for you, and is that for this book?
I deal with it for sure in the book. And, I think what we've seen is surprising to me. Having covered women's sports as well as men's, for the length of my career.
But the most damning revelation in Brennan's book? The jealousy. Deep, undeniable, and simmering just beneath the surface. Brennan exposes a culture within the league, players, executives, even some legacy media voices, who simply couldn't stomach the fact that Caitlin Clark, rookie, was instantly commanding more attention than veterans who had spent a decade grinding in the shadows. Suddenly, gyms were packed. TV ratings were soaring. Every podcast, every headline, every camera was pointing at one person. And it wasn't the seasoned stars, it was Clark. She hadn't even played a regular season minute, and yet she'd already redefined the league's visibility, and that's when the resentment started to show.
Here comes Caitlin Clark, and let's say it, and I say it in the book. I go into this in depth. A white woman from Iowa in a 74% black league. That's an issue. The book is the first real journalistic look at this entire season and at Caitlin Clark and what she's done. And all these issues that are out there, no holds barred. I shy away from nothing.
Instead of embracing the fact that a rising tide was lifting all boats, the league, and some of its players, responded with cold shoulders, hard fouls, and thinly veiled digs. The vibe shifted. Refs started swallowing whistles. Media voices began pumping out think pieces not celebrating Clark's popularity, but questioning it, almost resentful that she'd become the face of the league overnight. It was baffling. Like someone handed them a winning lottery ticket and they complained it wasn't in their favorite color.
I look at the way players like Diana Taurasi, Brianna Stewart, Cheryl Swoops with her flurry of falsehoods, Cheryl Reed, the Olympic coach, Gina Auriemma, really tried to minimize her and were very critical of her. That stunned me. You should be saying, this is great. You don't have to cheer for her. You guard her. You play tough. She's not a victim. She loves to throw it at people. She's feisty and tough out there. And that makes her, I think, even more appealing to so many people. But for this group of people to want to say such negative things and be so wrong about her, okay, fine. It's a free country. You can do what you want. But what she's doing by going into the WNBA.
What's truly wild is how obvious all of this was to anyone paying even the slightest attention. Caitlin Clark's 4 years at Iowa were a masterclass in building a national brand. She shattered records, packed arenas, and won over millions, not just with her game, but with her charisma and competitive fire. She didn't just elevate women's college basketball, she redefined it. Any halfway aware observer could see that her fan base wasn't going anywhere. They were coming to the WNBA with her, ready to spend, support, and show up.